Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another thing where I talk about things. Today, I would like to talk about El Santo and Mexican wrestler movies and stuff like that in general. It is a thing I'm a big fan of. We have an event that comes around every year or so, where this small movie theater does these double feature B movies. It's actually a lot of fun. But before we get into that, I wanted to talk a little bit about Done Somewhere and stuff that's going on with that. Presently, if you're following us on Patreon, I sent out an email just talking about the situation. Presently, Gym of the Romantic Journey not doing so well as we'd like. This is the sad news. Last episode only pulled in 10,000 viewers. We have a couple of theories on why maybe it didn't perform so well, but we may not be able to keep going with it just because it's not living up to the snuff that we wanted. But it's not all gone to pot because we've been really thoughtful about why it's not doing well. Because we really like it. We're really fond of some of the characters. I really like Alexis, Malcolm, and Nora, for example. I'm probably biased. I voice Malcolm and Nora, but we'd like to keep going with it. But I think that one thing that maybe we didn't do that we should have done is we should have approached that thing in a slightly grander way with an intent to sort of flesh out the universe more and make the whole thing feel bigger. Because we had kind of this lore in the background, we're like, this is what's going on in the back of the universe, and there's these two gods, and there's an origin story, and the gnomes are really important, and they're all tied to this conflict between these gods, and all that. And it's sort of a bigger universe, but you don't get that gravity, from just watching it episode to episode. So that could be where we went wrong. But another thing that happened is it kind of started off as sort of a bit of a one-off joke. People thought that it was just going to be a one-off because it was here's this gym and here's these kids. And they're all kind of a sort of parodies on, this or that. That you had this one little kid who kind of looked like Ash Ketchum, and she had a dog and she was going to train a dog. And so Dell shoots the dog, and, and that was the joke. But anyway, though, what we're thinking we might start doing is focusing more on Banana Republic, and we've got a lot going on right now. We're getting ready for BabsCon. We're going to be by the skin of our teeth on some of the stuff that we want to bring. Mass 17 is done. It won't be online until after the con. That's because it's got to premiere at the con, so apologize to patrons. But next month we'll go back to the preview thing being a deal week preview. Peel-Off, I'm working on Peel-Off. Peel-Off is going to be 10 minutes long. Our other stuff, though, like I say, we're working hard on it. Hopefully we'll be done. As we're getting closer and closer, the schedule's really crunching down on us, but whatever. There's going to be stuff. We got our schedule for BabsCon. If you're coming out to see us, we will be in the main hall from 11:30 to 1 p.m. 11, 12, 1. Yeah, 11:30 to 1 p.m. So we've got an hour and a half from 11:30 to 1 p.m. You guys will have a chance to go out and get an early lunch and then come down and sit with us. Might be a little rough. It's on Sunday. So the last day of the con. So hopefully we'll have a good turnout. I think that some people kind of go home on the second day or whatever. But if you'll be there, that's when we're going on. Main hall, 11:30 to 1 p.m. Sunday. Yeah. And we'll have a bunch of stuff. We'll do a Q&A session at the end of it. And yes, if we're lucky and everything gets done, we will have a ton of content. I mean, theoretically, I was going to bring along episode 11 and episode 23 from the original Mass series, but if everything goes off without a hitch, there won't actually be time to show that stuff. We're gonna have too much material. So yes, that's if everything goes off without a hitch. That's it. 10 minutes of Peel-Off. I started working on this. I think I'm 3 minutes in now, and I regret this choice. So anyway, though, Banana Republic, though. We're gonna start doing maybe more Banana Republic as opposed to Gym of the Romantic Journey, but what we're gonna do, what we're doing right now is we're sitting down, we're working on concept stuff for the characters. So we're looking at what shape of eye we want, how we want the head to look, and how we want to keep the clothes, the hairstyle, stuff like that, and probably I will not be doing so much animation. If the art winds up being on a higher technical level than I'm able to reach, then I won't be doing any kind of redrawing for the characters. I might do like do tweens or something like that. I don't know for sure. We're still in the kind of like planning stages for this whole thing, but we might start doing more of that instead of the Gym of the Romantic Journey. One thing I'm looking forward to, though, is that for a long time I've had a pretty firm idea of what I want to do with Banana Republic. I know who the characters are, and so far there hasn't been a lot that I've been able to do because it's just sort of like quick 1-minute shorts, and it's like you know, the Dibblefish, and here's this court case, and there's this thing, and you just get a little teeny tiny feel for how the characters are. And I've been really conservative with writing because I'm not very good at animating, and I know that if I try to do something like, and then there's a chase scene, then I would spend the next 3 months working on this chase scene, and it would come out looking terrible because I can't really animate. But what I've done now is I'm working on a script, and I'm kind of just cutting loose and just saying like, all right, so I want this fantastical element, I want this element, and so we're going to start big and then maybe pare down based on what we can do, but we'll have more experienced artists and animators that are working with us be doing that stuff, and then I'll do whatever details that I can actually manage. On that note, if you are interested in working with us, or like if you want to do art animation, I believe we might need someone to help with storyboards if you're good at framing and scene composition and stuff like that. If you would like to get involved with us, even just part-time, send us an email because we do need people. We've got a small team going right now. We're working with Pencils, the guy who does the Marble Pie comics. If you've seen those, if you have not seen them, you should go check them out. They're pretty amusing. They're like an On and Equestria type of thing. I can't recall if I've talked about this in personal time, but yeah. Pencils, he's pretty good. Isu Roma is doing our concept stuff. She's the one who's drawn the monkeys. She's got a good sense for like hair and clothing and stuff like that. She's been scolding me for ages about the way that I've been drawing the Banana Republic characters. So she's working on concepts for them right now. Like I said, that's all in the planning stages. One thing that we do need is lip syncers, and lip sync. If you if you just kind of want to work with us, lip sync is a thing that you can do. It's a very low barrier to entry type of thing. It's not anyone's favorite work, I don't think. We actually have had a couple of lip syncers, and there's a pretty high turnover rate for that. Unfortunately, it's not a whole lot of fun, but if you want to get in here and help us lip sync, it would save us a ton of time, and we'd really appreciate it. Yeah. So anyway, though, so if you want to get involved in that, send us an email at contact@donsomewhere.com. We'll shoot you along, maybe get you involved in something. We've got a bunch of stuff that needs work. Not a lot of money right now. I finished taxes and looked at all the budgeting and all that, and basically there's no money yet. There's no money yet, but I'm confident. I mean we're doing more, and we're getting some people, and I'm looking forward to stuff. So yeah. So I don't know. Like it feels like it's going upward. And yeah, I don't know. I'm looking forward to this Banana Republic thing. Jim, sad, but I don't know. We'll take some stuff away from that. So yeah, that's what's going on with the website. I think you guys will be really excited about what we're done with after April. At the end of all this, man, I'm excited for it. I'm excited. It's all a secret. It's all pony stuff. It's all pony BabsCon premieres. It'll be there maybe. Yeah. So anyway, though, El Santo Mexican wrestler movies. So, El Santo, if you're not familiar with El Santo, and a lot of people aren't, he's sort of a cult hero of Mexico. Way back in the 50s, he did just like tons and tons of movies. He's a Mexican wrestler, and what he would do is these ridiculous films where he would be wrestling like vampire women or zombies or mummies or things like that. And they do it all with this kind of sense of just like, this is very silly, but people kind of like really like El Santo, and they like the Mexican wrestling thing. It's all very cheesy. And there's actually a lot of Mexican entertainment that's like very cheesy, but still like really charming and really like a lot of fun to watch. So there's a local movie theater that I go to that once a year they do this thing called like cinema with cheese. And what this is, you go down there and they sell all kinds of like, they sell a bit of Mexican cuisine. They have these raffles where they give away Mexican wrestler masks. And they're like replicas of like Blue Demon and El Santo and stuff like that. And there's like some guy who's involved in like, I can't remember if he comes from the embassy or he's from some sort of like, I don't know, some sort of group. Something that has to do with Mexico. I don't know. He comes down there and he'll like, there's a bit of sponsorship and it's kind of like a Mexican culture thing, but it's like cheesy Mexican culture, and so it's a lot of fun. But yeah, and also beer. They sell beer, of course. So you go down to this movie theater and they sell beer, and like one year they had a mariachi band come out, and they played like during an intermission. They got up there and they played, and they were pretty good. A lot of fun. Great to go out with like friends, dates, girlfriends. It's a good local thing. Cinema, if you live in the Kansas City area, Cinema Con Queso. Keep an eye out for it if you ever see it. It's off in Lawrence, off in the college town, Lawrence. I actually have to drive out a ways to get to it. But yeah, El Santo. He's a cultural icon because he was in so many movies, but also he's an interesting guy because he stayed in character, as was the fashion in those days, pretty much indefinitely, right up until the day before he died. He actually went on a talk show, and as an old man, for the first time ever in public, he took off the mask and he showed everyone his face. And then, he was like, so this is El Santo, this is the man. And then he put the mask back on, and the very next day he passed away. And it's kind of striking. I mean, El Santo was like, I don't know, he was just the El Santo. And there's something about his films, like they're super cheesy, and they're not really they're not well directed, and sometimes they drag really badly. And you couldn't say that they're like good films. But over time, you watch enough El Santo, and you just start to root for the guy. Like, you just get into it. Like, his ridiculous daily life. Like, today I wrestle vampire women, and today I wrestle mummies, and today I wrestle zombies. You see him do that enough times, and sooner or later, you just become endeared to him. And there was one movie I remember where, like, a wrestler actually took him to the mat and started to take off his mask. And the whole room like went quiet, because you can't just demask like El Santo. Everyone was like, oh my god, like they didn't demask El Santo, right? They didn't actually do it, and he actually does it. He demasks him. He was wearing a mask underneath the mask, but he takes off the mask of El Santo, and everyone was like, oh boo, you can't do that. You can't do that to El Santo. Oh my god, there was actual tension in the theater. It's kind of funny, but. Yeah, in the U.S., they call him Samson. They don't call him El Santo. He's Samson versus the mummies. And I don't know why, because in Spanish, El Santo is just the saint. And I guess if they called him the saint versus the mummies, maybe people would have found it confusing. Maybe that's a justification. But MST3K watched a couple of his movies, a couple of the English dubs of his movies, where he was Samson versus the vampire women. And the plots are predictably just gibberish. They're kind of incoherent. I think Samson versus the Vampire Women, or El Santo versus the Vampire Women, was about these vampire women that I think they wake up and they decide that they're gonna take over the world, or they're gonna suck blood, or they're gonna do something. It doesn't really matter, because one way or the other, they get involved with like one of El Santo's friends and try to suck his blood or convert him into a vampire, or maybe it was a woman, or maybe it wasn't. I don't really remember. I just remember that El Santo had to go and wrestle these vampire women. And this was one of the movies that was kind of funny because El Santo didn't really like normally when you see his movies, he's hitting people all the time because he's a wrestler, he runs up and he does the wrestling, like, where he slaps somebody, like he karate chops them, and then they have to sell because it's like old school wrestling, and they sell the chop, and they're like, oh, I've been chopped, and then they'll like fall down or fall unconscious or whatever, depending on what's going on. But El Santo didn't like run up and like strike women really. So a lot of times what he did is he was like just trying to get out of their hypnosis, or they would put him in like a swinging guillotine trap, and he would heroically break out of the swinging guillotine trap, and then he would go and he would like throw open the windows or whatever and like burn the vampire women, or he would throw water on them or something like that. But there wasn't really a whole lot of like, he didn't suplex a lady, would have been inappropriate. This was the 50s, a man doesn't just suplex a lady even if she is a vampire. What kind of hero would El Santo be if he went around doing that? So yes, I can't recall if there was a vampire man. There might have been. I think they were all like the brides of like a Dracula type character, and that might be the case. Like I said, my memory is very foggy of it because it's not like there was a strong narrative. Like I watched the whole thing. I've actually watched some of these movies like more than once and still couldn't really tell you what the exact narrative was because they're not well written. Like, they're not really great. Like I say, they're not great movies, but you just learn to love El Santo anyway. Another one that I really liked, and this is one that I really liked because they sort of dropped the pretense of being serious at all, was El Santo versus the Mummies. And this one was funny because El Santo, like, they knew that El Santo was their big title character, but it was mostly not about El Santo. He shows up at the very end, and it's kind of comical because for most of the movie, it's about this guy, Blue Demon, and his friend Thousand Masks, and these are two other Mexican wrestlers. And there's these Mexican wrestling mummies that wake up. And these mummies, I can't remember how they got to be mummies, but they were like Mexican wrestlers that got mummified somehow, and they wanted revenge. And I think there was a flashback where they remembered like El Santo. I think it was like El Santo or Blue Demon or someone. One of the main characters, one of the titular characters, beat up one of the mummies, and so the mummy wanted revenge, and that's why he came back to life. And so he goes around like strangling police officers and like scaring people in the streets and shambling around. And so throughout the movie, they just keep having these like wrestling matches, you know, where they're like, oh no, zombies, and so they like fight and they're like throwing the zombies around and they're running in circles and they're acting like the heroes are always just so heroic, like, you know, they're just you know, like, zombies, I will fight the zombies. You know, I feel like if there was ever a zombie outbreak in 50s era Mexico, I mean, like, Mexico would have been fine. All the people would have just, you know, you just hide behind El Santo and they would run up to bite you. But El Santo has battled like thousands of zombies and thousands of vampire zombies. He's done it all. So there would be no danger at all of being converted to zombies, you know, as long as El Santo is there. Just hide behind El Santo. Yeah, America would be trapped in the shopping malls. Everyone else would be trapped behind El Santo, and it wouldn't be too bad. He's great. The other thing that's funny about that too is that those old superheroes, they had a slightly different perspective on like what was attractive. You know, you didn't get that chiseled superhero physique. You got that sort of bearish like strongman look. You know, like if you watch the World's Strongest Man competitions, all those guys look a little bit like, not like fat. Like, I mean, if you know muscle, you look at them, they're not fat. They're just sternly built. You know, or they're stout. I guess I think stout implies short. But they're just built, you know, like they're just big because the muscles just fill out and they get very large. And El Santo and Blue Demon and all those old Mexican wrestlers, they were kind of that same way. Is they weren't really like chiseled, you know, they weren't like bodybuilders. They were just very large men. You know, they just clearly worked out a lot. They were very strong men. So they had that strongman physique. And it's kind of funny because it's not really like what you might consider a sexy physique today, but they would often like flaunt that, you know, like like I'm built like a bear, I'm built like a lumberjack, and then, you know, they were legitimately strong men. Yeah. So anyway, though, yeah, the El Santo versus the mummies thing. It was funny because Blue Demon kept protecting this kid, and like the kid was like his little sidekick. And the movie wasn't above acknowledging how weird it was for Blue Demon to be running around with this kid. So occasionally, I mean, like they weren't really overt about it, but occasionally they were just dropping hints about like how weird the relationship was. Like he was like his adopted son or something like that, and he would be like he would just tell him to do weird things, you know, like just bizarre, like I'm the most irresponsible parent ever, like I'm the most irresponsible man, like I should not be trusted around children. And then El Santo was like traveling around, like El Santo shows up towards the late end of the movie, and he's traveling around with like his agent or something like that. And they had all these sort of hints that he and the agent were like let's get a room together and stuff like that. It was like El Santo, he wasn't above kind of being a bit of a self-parody in these things. Like I say, you become endeared because they took themselves seriously, but it was like they knew it was entertainment. You know, they were just entertaining people, and so if you wrote for them to be like, yeah, we might be kind of gay, they just do it. Like El Santo was just fun. He was just a fun, like, I don't know, lots of fun. But he shows up though, and like Thousand Masks and Blue Demon have been fighting with these mummies for the entire movie. They've been trying to figure out how to defeat them, and sometimes they don't have the upper hand, and sometimes they do. And they've out-wrestled these zombies over and over again. But the zombies just keep getting up. They're relentless. It doesn't matter how many times they get pinned. The zombies want revenge, and they want to wrestle Blue Demon until he loses. So what El Santo does is he shows up, and he's like, oh my gosh, zombies. And he wrestles with them for a little while. You get your big El Santo wrestling thing. And you know, they do the karate chops and the throws and the suplexes and all that fun stuff. And then eventually El Santo gets up and he goes, Blue Demon, 1,000 masks. I have flamethrowers in my car. Go and grab them. And so then they run out with flamethrowers and they just burn the mummies down. And it was like, really? Like, we got to the end of the movie and El Santo is just like, yeah, get the flamethrowers. This is taking too long. So that's how they resolve it all. They just burn all the mummies to death with the flamethrowers. And I mean, and I would say, like, spoiler warning, but it comes totally out of the blue. It's not like it's a big hook or anything like that. It just sort of like, go and do it. And he just tells them like it's totally normal. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, the flamethrowers. And they don't respond at all. They just come out with the flamethrowers and burn down the mummies. And then after that, like, scene over. Like, that was all we had to do, was just set the mummies on fire. They drive away into the sunset, everybody with their respective person. The Blue Demon with his adopted son, El Santo with his manager, and then 1,000 Masks drives off with the girl. And it's kind of amusing because they show the driving off in the sunset scene. They start with the girl, and then they just go down, and everyone's all like smiling at each other and acting really happy, and it's just like super cheesy and super weird and super awkward. But I'm pretty sure that the people doing the movies knew that, and I'm pretty sure that they knew that people would go see the movies because they really go to see it for the cheese and the weirdness and the awkward, and of course, those guys were actual athletes, and so they could actually do some action scenes. And this is one thing I think that's especially notable about those Mexican wrestler movies, is that a lot of B movies, kind of, you go into them, and they just have like bad acting. You know, they have no budget, bad acting, and they don't really have any sort of action scenes that would require much stamina or strength or anything like that. But when they're doing stuff with Mexican wrestlers, like, those guys had the stamina and strength to like pick each other up and throw each other around, and they could wrestle and fight. There was one scene that honestly just went on too long. It was just a long, continuous like wrestling match. It just drags out for like 10 minutes of pure wrestling. And it was just like, that's what they did for a living normally. I mean, when they weren't shooting movies. So they could have like fight scene after fight scene after fight scene, and just have them be like long, continuous cuts where everybody was actually like, you know, doing what it was that Mexican wrestlers did at the time, and, you know, not getting so exhausted that they couldn't continue any further. Yeah. But anyway, though, the Cinema Con Queso thing that I go to, it doesn't just do El Santo. Like, El Santo is the big iconic guy, and of course he's the hero that everybody's got to look up to, because he was the one who did just movie after movie after movie. And like I say, a bit legendary how he passed away, with the revealing his face and then dying the next day. But Cinema with Cheese, they also do other Mexican wrestling things, and sometimes on the occasion they do one where it's not a wrestling flick, but they just do like a normal like old Mexican B movie. And they're all still kind of charming because they all still follow that same formula. Some of them are legitimately really bad. Like, I went to see one where they had a Mexican wrestler, and it was weird. He was, I think he called himself the Angel. And what this was is he kept coming into this boy's bedroom, and he would be like, "Did you do your homework?" And like the boy would be like, "Yes, Angel." And so he was like the guardian angel, and what it was is, I think it was the boy's like father or his uncle or something like that. And so the Mexican wrestler, he was just coming in, and he was like, "Did you do your homework? You know, like, were you nice to your sister today? Like, good." And then he would leap out through the window and go about his daily business. And that was just what the angel was doing. And then what happens is, like, the boy gets kidnapped by some kind of evil criminal syndicate. And so the dad, who's been pretending to be this, like, Mexican wrestler all this time, he runs out to go, like, save his son. And this actually sounds like the setup for a pretty reasonable comedy. Like, if you wanted to make a comedy about this idea, you totally could. Like, I actually would love to go see a movie where that was the premise. It's just like this dad is like made himself like this ridiculous tooth fairy character that his son looks up to, and then, you know, he's not really super or anything like that, but then his son gets abducted by, I don't know, Dr. Claw or whatever, and he's just like, what? That's a real thing? There's actually a Dr. Claw organization? They'd be like, oh, yeah, that was based on a true story. And then dad has to run out and save his kid. Yeah, the movie was terrible because it's a B movie. It was really, like, you know, under budget and everything like that. But yeah, so this guy, this uncle, dad, whatever, or he might have, I don't know, the janitor, cousin, something. He runs out to go save this kid, and it just becomes like a series of stupid things. He's not actually a very good Mexican wrestler, and he gets caught, and eventually the boy has to save him and set him free. And so, yeah, that again, fun to watch, just because B movies are fun to watch. But Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I would pay like tons of money to watch them by myself. If they sold them on DVDs, I don't think I would buy them. But definitely, I would go to theaters with friends and go see it. Another one that they did, and this one didn't have to do with Mexican wrestling, was an alien flick. And what this was is that these aliens came down to Earth, and I believe that they were all. I think that they were women, and they were looking for a man to repopulate Venus. And the star, of course, was this sort of singer and teller of tall tales who sort of ran around. He was very chicanerous with the ladies. You know, he would approach everyone and be like, you know, hello, lady, how are you doing today? And she'd be like, back off, I'm not interested today. And he would be like, you know, okay. And so he was actually kind of a gentleman, because he would be sort of like, he'd walk up and he'd say some cheesy one-liner to them or something like that, and they would be like, oh, back off, and he would back off, but you know, he'd broken the ice with this cheesy thing, and then he would be polite and he would kind of talk to them, and it would turn out that he was really friendly, and you know, he was really respectful towards them, and so they'd tell him like, you know, I'm doing, you know, like, what are you doing in town? And she would be like, oh, I'm doing this, and he'd be like, oh, really? That's a very, and you know, he would turn around, and he would become like, he'd be like respectful, and he'd be like, oh, he takes a genuine interest in the girl. And so then, you know, you'd have a conversation. So he'd break the ice with these cheesy pickups, and then kind of work from that. And he could sing, and he could do like romance and love music. So he was kind of cute. He was a cute character, because he would be super cheesy, and he would lay it on too thick, and then he would back up, and he would be nice, and then he would start to be cheesy again. But by this point, when he starts to get cheesy again, like the girl's already starting to become a little bit smitten with him, and so when he lays on the cheese, and she's just like, oh, okay. But now it's sort of funny, because she kind of likes him a little bit, and so yeah, it's sort of just that. I don't know. He was a fun main character, kind of a cute main character. He was just sort of hanging out, and they did a little bit of the old comedy stand-up stuff. Like, you get that old sort of those vaudeville routines where you have these back and forths between characters, and like one guy is saying one thing, and you know, they go back and forth, and they have like little double meanings, or like, oh, I tricked myself on that one. These sorts of things. Just cute stuff, like again, not fantastic writing, but sort of endearing anyway. Like, you just have to appreciate that, as cheesy as it was all cheesy in kind of it was cheesy in a charming sort of way. But anyway, though, so these women from Venus come, and they're looking to like capture the ideal male specimen, and I think what happens is the women from Venus fall in love with this guy as he's like wooing a Mexican lady, and they're just like, truly, this is the most virile of men. Look at how she looks at him, in spite of his terrible singing, and stuff like that. And so they're like, oh, so he must be very socially charming if she's willing to put up with that kind of caterwauling. I assume there must be something amazing about him. So they want to kidnap the guy. And then they get into this like weird political scuffle where like I think women from Jupiter show up as well. And the women, like the woman from Jupiter is like, she wants the women from Venus to die off, because all the women on Jupiter are dead as well, and I think she wants to kidnap the guy too, but her intentions are more evil, and so she releases all these like intergalactic criminals, and one of them is just like a skeleton, and that's actually really comical. They explain like the background as to why he's just a skeleton. It's something like on his planet, like the sands just burn away your skin, and the radiation and all that stuff. Like, he just explains it. He's just like, so I am a skeleton, but he's still able to endure as a skeleton. So yeah, it's like they've captured all these men from these other planets, but they're totally unsuitable because they're like horrible criminals and they're super violent and dangerous. So the woman from Jupiter or whatever releases all these violent criminal potential male specimens that the Venus women were going to reproduce with, and so they just go on a rampage around Mexico. And so it winds up being this guy's responsibility, this romantic guy. It winds up being his responsibility to try to get things under control. And for the life of me, I can't remember exactly how he deals with it, but I'm pretty sure that the answer was that the monsters were just incredibly dumb and they were basically pushovers. I don't think he even shoots them. I mean, like, he wasn't a fighter or anything like that. I'm pretty sure that he manages to just turn the tables on them or like, I don't know, throw rocks at them. And, like, you know, turns out that throwing a rock at an alien's head is just as devastating to an alien as it is to a person. So it's like, Rock, dead. I killed it. I killed one. I got one. And so, he just goes through the movie gradually picking off the bad aliens. And I can't remember what he does do about the women from Venus. I think that I'm sure that what he does is he stays with the woman in Mexico because he's been wooing her throughout the movie. She's the actual love interest. And she's his compatriot throughout the movie, She's like with him, and she's like, what do we do? Like, what is the plan? Like, what should we do? And she's trying to figure out ways to work things. She works together with him, and he has like a sidekick as well, who's like a kid. I think it's his brother that he lives with. This is another thing, it's like you bring in the kid and have like a kid be a sidekick to attract the younger audiences. I'm sure is what was going on with that. I'm sure that's why they always have the kids, like that's why all the superheroes had kid sidekicks as well. It was like, yeah, we need this little punk kid for the kids to relate to, sidekick, and yeah. But that was sort of a charming one. Not a Mexican wrestling flick. I kept waiting for El Santo to show up and like punch all the aliens to death, but he never came. This guy just eventually figured the situation out, and I'm pretty sure that he negotiated peace. He might not have. They might have just imprisoned the woman from Jupiter. I don't know. But yeah, super cheesy, very 50s era, but lots of fun. Just lots of fun. I've always been a big fan of the MST3K thing, though. So while I speak fondly on this stuff, I find it likely that if you don't enjoy B movies, if you don't enjoy bad movies, probably my recommendation should fall on deaf ears. These are not like well-made movies. Again, I can't say it enough. They're not good movies, unless you love that kind of cheese and that sort of just, unless you can like root for El Santo over watching him like fight mummies and vampires and aliens and everything else. Oh my, But but this is one thing I've actually been thinking about. This is after the MLP season 6 opener, I was thinking like My Little Pony, like it's actually pretty cute. It's one of the reasons why I got into it. It's a super cute little show. And for season 1 and season 2, it was about these angry little horses. Like they were petulant and childish, and they fought with each other. But come season 6, I'm starting to see some things that imply they might have a certain amount of talent drain. And I don't want to be too hard on them because I appreciate the amount of work that goes into a creative product. And it's one of those. It's like I'm throwing stones from a glass house when I talk about like, the direction wasn't very good. It's like stuff that I can see and I can say like, all right, technically this is what's wrong, and whether or not I could do better is another question entirely. So I don't want to rag on them too hard, but a part of me wants to see MLP get so bad that it becomes like those old B movies, and then I can go from like earnestly kind of enjoying how cute and petulant the ponies are to earnestly enjoying how terrible they are. Like if it just becomes like boring, that's no fun at all. But if it becomes like legitimately terrible, like if I tune in MLP like next week and they have an episode where like an alien comes to Equestria and then tries to leave with Fluttershy because they want Fluttershy to help them reproduce their planet, and then Fluttershy has to team up with Discord to stop the aliens, and it's all super cheesy, and then El Santo shows up and beats up all the aliens. That wouldn't be a good direction for My Little Pony to go in terms of quality, but that would be the kind of thing that would keep me. I would stay on as a viewer and be like, yes, this is awful. I just have to keep watching this. This is charmingly awful. This is just stupid. This is stupid, and I don't ever want to stop seeing this. So yeah, but I'm that guy. I'll watch El Santo movies. I watch things that are not good. I'll watch things that are good. I'll watch things that are not good. Love them both. Love them both for different reasons. But yeah. Weird. I talked about it already, but My Little Pony is starting to develop some really weird direction stuff and some weird writing, some weird characterization. I don't know. If they're gonna go downhill, I want them to go downhill like hard and fast. I want them to explode, because at least then the explosion will be pretty. I'll be like, ooh, boom, and then maybe they can just burn, like for a long time, just the fire, like ooh, pretty. That one caught the whole town. Yeah. But yeah. MST3K, old B movie. If you're ever looking for anything, if you're that type of person, you're ever looking for like really trashy movies to watch and have a good time with, El Santo, strongly recommend. Lots of fun to watch. So yes, I suppose that'll be it for today. Thanks for joining me, everybody. I will catch you all next time.